Beneath the pale shimmer of a dying star, the void was littered with wreckage. Broken satellites spun silently, fragments of habitats smoldered, and the drifting corpses of a colony swayed in the weightlessness of space. From the bridge of the Varith Ascendant, Admiral Xyler regarded the ruin with the cold detachment of a man watching dust scatter in the wind. His elongated eyes, rimmed with metallic irises, did not blink. "Another anthill crushed," he said, his voice echoing across the command chamber. The crew, loyal to the point of fanaticism, gave clipped affirmations. None dared question his tone of casual superiority. Xyler leaned back in his throne-like chair, talons flexing. Pathetic creatures, these humans. They bleed, they beg, and yet they still believe the galaxy has room for them. Laughter spread through the command crew, though hollow, dutiful. Officers exchanged glances, some amused, others merely performing. One, a younger strategist named Sarah, ventured a dry remark. "Admiral, their colonies hardly resist. They scatter at the sight of our ships. You give them too much dignity by calling them creatures." Xyler smirked, baring teeth sharp as obsidian. "Dignity is not the word. Pest is closer. But pests that breed too quickly are dangerous if ignored." He gestured to the void beyond the viewport, where the embers of human lives faded into nothing. "So we cleanse them before their noise becomes distracting." The bridge settled into silence as the fleet aligned for its next jump. For weeks, they had been striking at human outposts, wiping one after another with ruthless precision. The routine had grown so predictable that even the thrill of destruction had dulled. Sarah, scrolling through intercepted transmissions, let out a chuckle. They broadcast entertainment across the stars. Old signals, what they call films. I stumbled across one last cycle. Explosions, motorized vehicles crashing into one another, men screaming into radios. Loud, clumsy things. She tilted her head in mock confusion. Perhaps they train for war through this nonsense. The remark drew more laughter. Xyler's claws tapped against the arm of his chair. War? If that is war, then we have nothing to fear. They drown themselves in fantasy to forget their weakness. Is the way of fragile species. He did not say aloud that, beneath his scorn, he carried the faintest ember of curiosity. These humans had expanded faster than most species allowed. Their settlements multiplied like spores, far-flung and stubborn. He had watched them quietly from a distance, and though he despised their noise, he had to admit they carried an uncanny persistence. The comms officer broke the quiet. "Admiral, our next targets are logged. Frontier systems. Sparse populations. We estimate a 6-day cleansing campaign before resupply." Xyler waved the suggestion away. Predictable. Predictability breeds boredom. Find something more central. The crew hesitated. It was not common for Xyler to stray from calculated conquest. "Central, Admiral." Sarah asked carefully. "Earth," Xyler said, as if the name itself were an annoyance lodged in his throat. The chamber froze. Even among their arrogance, Earth carried weight. The cradle of humanity, symbolic more than strategic. Attacking it would be a statement, not a necessity. One of the senior tacticians finally spoke. "Admiral, Earth is not like these colonies. Its defenses, though crude, are." Xyler silenced him with a flick of his claw. "Defenses? What defenses? A few orbital guns, scattershot fleets, civilian vessels pretending to be ships of war. We have dismantled far greater civilizations in our history. Do you fear this dirt sphere?" The tactician's jaw tightened, but he fell silent. Sarah smirked, emboldened by her commander's scorn. It would be amusing. To cut out their heart before the body realizes it is dying. "That," Xyler murmured, "is precisely the point. And the noise at its source. The galaxy will not even notice the silence that follows." Preparations began at once. The fleet coiled like a predator, engines humming, weapons calibrated. The chatter on the bridge grew eager, almost giddy. Officers exchanged wagers on how long Earth's defenders would last. Some claimed hours, others minutes. Yet there was unease beneath the bravado. A quiet shift in the air. Xyler felt it but ignored it. He would not let hesitation infect him. He leaned forward, addressing his crew with measured arrogance. When history records this night, it will not speak of caution. It will speak of the empire that ended humanity before it began. Prepare the jump. The stars distorted. Space folded into itself, swallowing the fleet in brilliant arcs of light. The sensation of transition tore briefly at flesh and bone, leaving only the echo of the old system behind them. When the distortion ceased, silence engulfed the bridge. Before them stretched the Sol system, calm and unassuming. Jupiter's bands swirled in regal silence. The asteroid belt glittered faintly, unguarded. Earth hung like a pale jewel in the distance, blue and green and utterly ordinary. Sarah laughed first. This is their sanctuary, their great homeworld. I expected fortresses, a swarm of fleets. Instead, I see nothing. Others chuckled, reassured. Weapons calibrated, targeting grids spread across the void. Earth's defenses pinged faintly, token orbital stations, outdated fighters drifting like gnats around a giant. Pathetic, one officer muttered, like a child holding a stick and calling a spear. Xyler studied the display. His lips curled in contempt, though deep in his mind, a thought nagged, too still. Too quiet. Commence initial bombardment, he ordered. The fleets surged forward, lances of energy carving through the void. One by one, Earth's satellites winked out, reduced to ashes. Orbital platforms shattered with no resistance. The alien bridge filled with the comforting glow of victory, charts showing annihilation, warnings silenced, pathways cleared. Sarah leaned against her console, amused. All their fangs and not a single bite. Admiral, I fear we may grow soft hunting such weak prey. Xyler did not respond immediately. His eyes narrowed on the image of Earth itself, still silent, still waiting. Clouds shifted over continents, storms brewing unseen beneath the atmosphere. It should have pleased him, this easy victory. Yet the quiet gnawed at him, like an unseen predator watching from the dark. Continue the sweep, he said at last, voice colder than before. The crew obeyed, laughter dimming as they advanced. Every station destroyed, every satellite erased, yet still Earth remained unyielding, untouched, enigmatic. The silence deepened, pressing against the bridge walls. And for the first time, Admiral Xyler wondered, not if they could win, but if they had made a mistake stepping into this cradle uninvited. The fleet cut deeper into the system, each kill feeding the arrogance on the alien bridge. Station after station winked out of existence. Human ships, fragile and poorly armed, died in brief flashes that scarcely slowed the rhythm of the assault. On the Varith Ascendant, Admiral Xyler sat like a shadow against the glow of collapsing targets, his expression carved in quiet satisfaction. See how easily their walls crumble, Sarah said, her lips curved in mocking delight. This is humanity's cradle, yet I see no defenders worthy of the name. The chamber stirred with approving laughter. Officers leaned into their consoles, half-bored, calling out strike confirmations as if reciting routine drills. The arrogance was infectious, carried like a contagion across the fleet. But the Admiral remained silent, eyes locked on the planet below. Earth's surface shimmered with oceans and continents, storms brewing over the Pacific. From orbit it was serene, far too serene. His instincts, sharpened by decades of conquest, itched with unease. Do you feel it? He asked suddenly. The bridge quieted. His voice was soft, but cut through the air like a blade. Feel what, Admiral? Sarah asked, feigning curiosity, though irritation crept into her tone. The stillness. The absence of panic. They should scream. Their signals should be drowning the void. He gestured toward the communications display, empty of distress calls. And yet silence. The comms officer glanced nervously at her readings. Perhaps their networks are already destroyed. Perhaps their silence is desperation. Xyler's gaze lingered, his jaw tightening. Perhaps. Yet as the fleet pressed on, the silence thickened, oppressive, until it felt less like weakness and more like design. Without warning, the navigation deck lit up with alarms. Strange distortions rippled across sensors, brief, fleeting anomalies, like ripples in water where no stone had been thrown. The technicians scrambled, hands darting across glyph-lit panels. Spatial interference detected. Origin unknown. Xyler leaned forward, claws curling against his chair. Report. Localized distortions near Mars orbit. Artificial but not weapons. Not anything I recognize. Sarah laughed, dismissive. A human malfunction. Their machines break as easily as their colonies. Yet her laughter faltered when the distortion stabilized, coalescing into luminous rings. Space itself bent inward, folding like fabric pulled through unseen hands. The fleet shuddered as wormholes bloomed across the system, silent and deliberate. Dozens of them. The crew froze, their arrogance collapsing into unease. "Impossible," whispered one officer. "They have no such technology." Zyler's eyes widened, not in fear, but in recognition. He had seen such precision once before, wielded only by empires long dead. If humans had mastered it, then they had not been sleeping. They had been watching. A new voice pierced the silence, carried across the comms. Calm. Controlled. Human. This is Admiral Reyes of the United Earth Defense Command. The words echoed across every alien vessel. "You have trespassed on our home. Your mistake was assuming we were unprepared." The bridge of the Ascendant stiffened. Reyes' tone carried no desperation, no trembling plea. Only an unnerving stillness, like a surgeon addressing a patient already on the table. "You thought our silence weakness," Reyes continued. "It was invitation. You thought our colonies undefended. They were bait. Every move you made led you here to Sol. And now you are exactly where we wanted you." Sarah's skin paled, her arrogance crumbling into disbelief. "This is a trick," she muttered. "Noise meant to frighten us." But no one laughed. The wormholes flared brighter. From their depths emerged ships, sleek, angular, unlike anything catalogued. They moved with eerie precision, their formations prearranged as if they had rehearsed this moment for years. The alien fleet, once predator, suddenly looked small, clumsy, exposed. On the bridge, officers broke into panicked chatter. New vessels detected. Numbers exceeding projections, dozens, hundreds. "Admiral, they are encircling us." Zyler rose slowly from his chair, his tall form casting a long shadow. His voice carried steel. "Hold formation. Do not scatter." Yet even as he commanded, he knew the tide had shifted. Then, without fanfare, a shadow moved behind Luna. At first it appeared as a sliver of darkness, a trick of contrast against the moon's pale glow. But as it slid free, the void itself seemed to bow beneath its mass. The ship emerged in full, a colossus unlike anything his species had ever faced. It dwarfed their dreadnoughts, its armor plated in deep obsidian alloys that swallowed light. Its shape was brutal yet elegant, every line carved for intimidation and efficiency. No banners, no markings. It did not announce itself. It simply existed. Silent, terrible, inevitable. The bridge fell into stunned silence. One officer's voice cracked. What is that?" Sarah, for once, had no quip. Her eyes were wide, reflecting the leviathan that hung before them. Zyler's throat tightened. He whispered, almost reverent, "A titan." The comms flared again, Admiral Reyes' voice calm as ever. "You are looking at the Eidolon, Titan-class warship. We built it for the day arrogance like yours would reach our cradle. You came seeking weakness. You found inevitability." For the first time in his long career, Zyler felt fear press against his ribs. Not the fear of death, but of realization, that humanity had been playing the long game, waiting behind their quiet skies, forging monsters in the dark. The Titan did not fire. It didn't need to. Its very presence was a verdict. Sarah turned to her admiral, voice shaking. "We should retreat before it moves." Zyler could not look away from the Eidolon. Retreat was impossible. The wormholes had closed around them, their escape paths severed with surgical precision. The trap was complete. On the alien bridge, silence reigned. On the human side, there was only waiting. And as the stars around Earth seemed to hold their breath, Admiral Reyes spoke one last time. "This is your first and final warning. Leave now if you still can. The next move is ours." The Eidolon shifted, slowly, like a giant waking from slumber. Its engines hummed, low and resonant, vibrating through the void. The alien crew froze, their laughter of earlier now ashes in their throats. And Admiral Zyler understood with bone-deep certainty, the war he thought he had been winning had not yet begun. The void pulsed with an unnatural stillness. The Eidolon hovered like an executioner waiting for the sentence to be spoken. No fire, no wild display of violence, just presence. It unsettled the alien crew more than any barrage of weapons could have. Zyler sat rigid in his command throne, claws digging grooves into the armrests. His crew, once brimming with derision, now whispered with the tremor of prey. "Admiral," one officer murmured, her voice thin, "our salvos cannot even pierce their shields. They are untouchable." "Nothing is untouchable," Zyler snapped, though his own words lacked conviction. He ordered a test. 2 full squadrons hurled forward, weapons primed. The alien ships descended on the Titan like wasps, their cannons igniting the void in a furious blaze. The light flared, then faded. The Eidolon remained untouched. No scorch, no dent. Then came the counterstrike. One beam, thin, precise, unhurried, lanced across the dark and cut through a flagship as though it were paper. There was no explosion, no chaos, only silence as a vessel the size of a city dissolved into fragments. The human weapon spoke with finality, and the galaxy seemed to listen. On the alien bridge, silence curdled into terror. Sarah's usual smirk was gone, replaced by trembling disbelief. "Admiral, it didn't even aim. It selected." Xyler said nothing. His throat worked, but no sound came. For the first time in decades, he could not frame destruction as routine. The comms flickered again, Admiral Reyes' voice cutting through their fear. "You misunderstand us. Humanity does not revel in war. But when forced, we do not fight for victory. We fight to end the fight." The weight of those words pressed heavier than the ship itself. In the hours that followed, as fleets repositioned and the wormholes pulsed with silent reinforcements, Xyler withdrew to his private chamber. The bravado he wore on the bridge cracked in solitude. He pulled up the stolen archives his intelligence had gathered, centuries of human history. He had dismissed them before as primitive chaos. Tonight, he watched with new eyes. Images rolled before him. Men in trenches drowning in mud and blood, entire cities consumed by firestorms, mushroom clouds tearing skies apart. Civilizations ending and rebuilding, over and over, each scar shaping them sharper, harder. He leaned closer, transfixed by recordings of their 20th century, 1,000 wars compressed into mere decades. Tanks grinding across ruined streets, civilians defiant under bombardment, soldiers charging into death not for conquest, but for survival. Their wars were ugly, savage, but never meaningless. Xyler whispered to himself, "They are not reckless. They are rehearsed." Sarah entered without permission, though her usual insolence had dulled to unease. "You're watching them?" she asked quietly, eyes flicking to the screen where a human soldier crawled through smoke with half a leg, still dragging his weapon. "They train for extinction," Xyler murmured. "Every generation, every war. They carve survival into their bones. What we dismissed as noise," he gestured to the screen, where footage shifted to orbital conflicts, nuclear drills, silent bunkers. "This is their preparation." Sarah swallowed. For once she had no barbed jest. "Then we cannot defeat them." He turned sharply. "Defeat is not yet decided. But understand this." He jabbed a claw at the glowing figure of a mushroom cloud blooming into night. "We are not fighting a species that fears war. We are fighting one that perfects it." Before she could respond, the summons arrived. The High Council of their empire demanded explanation. Xyler composed himself, donning again the mask of authority. When the council chamber's projection flickered to life, dozens of alien leaders appeared, their voices a torrent of disbelief. "You lost a flagship. One ship annihilated an entire squadron. This is impossible fabrication." Xyler raised his voice, steady and resonant. "It is not fabrication. Humanity has deceived us for decades. The colonies we burned were not failures. They were sacrifices, bait to draw us to Earth. We walked willingly into their trap." The chamber erupted, some laughing, others spitting outrage. A counselor sneered, "You mean to tell us a backwater species wove such strategy under our gaze? Absurd." Another interjected, eyes wide with dawning terror. "If he speaks truth, then we face predators cloaked as prey." Xyler seized on the words. "Yes, that is what they are. And if we continue as we are, we will not merely lose battles. We will lose the Empire itself." The debate raged. Some counselors demanded immediate retreat, others pressed for overwhelming force. A faction sneered that fear made Xyler weak, that no primitive species could rival their fleets. Through it all, he remained firm. "You mock what you do not understand. You cling to arrogance because the alternative is terror. But I have seen them. I have heard their commander's voice. Humanity does not bluff. They calculate." The council fractured, leaving the decision unresolved. Some dismissed his warnings as exaggeration, others whispered of collapse if humanity proved stronger. When the call ended, Xyler stood alone in his chamber, his claws trembling. Sarah lingered by the door, her eyes unreadable. "They won't listen," she said softly. "No," Xyler admitted. His shoulders sagged under the weight of realization. "And that will damn us all." He turned back to the holoscreen, where Admiral Reyes' calm face lingered in captured broadcast. The human's eyes were steady, cold, not triumphant. Xyler searched them for arrogance, for pride. He found none. Only resolve. It chilled him more than any weapon. The fleet outside shifted, alien formations hesitant now, every officer aware they were being studied. Human ships moved like pieces on a board already played, as though every alien response had been anticipated. The Titan remained still, its silence louder than any barrage. Xyler stood at the viewport, staring at the Leviathan. "The galaxy thinks us conquerors," he whispered. "But we are children, and we have kicked the door of a sleeping giant." Behind him, Sarah asked the question he dreaded most. "Admiral, what happens when it fully wakes?" He had no answer. Only the hollow certainty that whatever humanity was about to unleash would not be confined to Earth's orbit. And as the Eidolon shifted again, its hull glowing faintly with restrained power, Xyler realized the conflict was no longer about conquest. It was about survival, his empire's, perhaps the galaxy's. The war had already changed shape. The predator had become prey, and the prey was no longer content to hide. The first strike came without warning, yet with terrifying precision. From the Eidolon's hull, a swarm of drones unfolded like a cloud of steel insects, each glinting with surgical purpose. They did not scatter wildly, but moved in flawless coordination, forming shifting patterns that cut directly through the alien blockade. Where they passed, ships simply ceased to function. Engines gutted, weapons silenced, command decks plunged into darkness before hulls even split. There was no chaos, only the soundless erasure of fleets that had once terrified star systems. On the Varith Ascendant, alarms screamed, panels flashed red, officers shouted coordinates, but their panic sounded pitiful against the calm storm bearing down on them. Admiral Xyler gripped his chair, his composure fraying. He had witnessed battles lost before, but never battles stripped of meaning. This was not war. This was demonstration. "Admiral," Sarah gasped, her face pale as she read the collapsing fleet reports, "they are dismantling us, piece by piece." No enemy should move with such certainty. Xyler forced himself to speak through clenched teeth. "Then they studied us long before we studied them. Every formation, every tactic, we are not their first war. We are their practice." The Eidolon shifted, its massive silhouette blotting out starlight as its main cannon aligned. There was no rush, no urgency. One beam fired, a single thread of pure energy that speared into the heart of another dreadnought. The ship didn't explode, it unraveled, dissolving in silence as though the universe itself had decided it was no longer required. Across the alien empire, news spread faster than light. The homeworld's counselors quarreled, allies abandoned treaties, subordinate species stirred in rebellion. The image of a Titan-class warship hovering over Earth reached every corner of the empire, and in each, confidence fractured. Back on the Ascendant, officers broke rank. Some cried for retreat, others demanded unconditional surrender. Their fear was a living thing, spreading from console to console, devouring what little discipline remained. Xyler rose, his tall figure casting a shadow across the trembling bridge crew. His voice, though strained, cut through the chaos. "If you will fall, then fall with dignity. Hold your stations." He said it not out of belief, but because silence in the face of despair was worse than a lie. Then the comms lit up, and Admiral Reyes appeared again. His expression was calm, unshaken, as though the annihilation unfolding was a matter of procedure. His voice carried no anger, no glee, only finality. "This is not conquest," Reyes said, his gaze steady on Xyler. "We did not build the Eidolon to rule you. We built it to end wars before they begin. You sought weakness. You mistook patience for frailty. You miscalculated." Sarah whispered, almost pleading, "They don't even hate us." Xyler understood. That was the deepest wound, not to be destroyed by hatred, but to be corrected by indifference. On screen, Reyes continued, "You still have a choice. Surrender your fleet. Stand down your empire's aggression. We will not pursue revenge, but neither will we tolerate defiance. Decide now. Your time is measured in breaths." The bridge hung in silence. Xyler's crew looked to him, their once arrogant faces hollowed by fear. He thought of the council, still squabbling in denial, refusing to heed his warnings. He thought of the recordings he had watched, the mushroom clouds, the firestorms, the endless cycle of human wars. He realized the truth with grim clarity: humanity had not overcome their violence. They had refined it, buried it, and saved it for the moment someone was foolish enough to awaken it. Admiral. Sarah's voice cracked, her hands trembling over her console. What do we do? Xyler closed his eyes. Pride had carried them here. Arrogance had blinded them. To resist now would not be courage, but suicide. He opened his eyes again, finding Rhea's unflinching stare. I am Admiral Xyler of the Varith Ascendant, he said, his voice steadier than he felt. On behalf of my fleet, we stand down. The words tasted of ash, but when he spoke them, the bridge seemed to breathe again. Officers slumped in relief, though none dared cheer. Reyes inclined his head, acknowledging without triumph. Then you will live, and you will serve as a witness to your people. This war ends not in your destruction, but in our reminder. The transmission cut. Outside, the Eidolon dimmed its cannon, its drones retreating in perfect silence. The trap remained, but the execution paused. Humanity, it seemed, was offering restraint, but restraint with steel teeth bared. Later, when the reports filtered back through the Empire, the effect was seismic. Fear fractured unity faster than any weapon. Worlds that had once whispered of rebellion now shouted. Armies that once believed themselves unmatched now hesitated, second-guessed, faltered. The Empire had not just lost ships, it had lost the illusion of superiority. Xyler stood at the viewport, staring at Earth's quiet glow. The homeworld of a species he had dismissed as noisy children now looked less like a cradle and more like a forge. He felt the weight of history tilting, a pivot from which the galaxy would never recover. Behind him, Sarah's voice was hushed, reverent in a way he had never heard. They didn't celebrate. No, Xyler said. His reflection in the glass showed not the proud conqueror he had once been, but something smaller, something chastened. Celebration is for victors. They do not see themselves as victors, only as guardians. Guardians of what? She asked. He turned his gaze outward, toward the infinite stars waiting to be claimed. His answer was quiet, but chilled her to the bone. Guardians of their awakening. The Eidolon drifted past the moon, its silent shadow consuming the light, a reminder of power neither flaunted nor denied. Humanity had revealed itself, not as prey, not as equal, but as something the galaxy had never known. Predators who hunted only when forced, and who hunted with finality. And in that silence, Xyler understood the future. The empire he had served would bend or break. Humanity would not demand crowns or thrones, they would demand compliance. Not out of cruelty, but out of certainty. The war was over, but the reckoning had only begun.